Hello, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome to Yes Podcast. Maybe do
Do yes while true?
until end of file.
Confirm.
Yes, no, abort, retry, fail. Hello, and welcome to Hacking the Grepson, where we make terrible programming jokes on the fly that
You're
don't
welcome.
really that don't really compile. Honestly, I might have to go back and debug that. But yes, so we are in the middle of December, almost the middle of December. So we're doing a check-in on this episode for Advent of Code. It's been a few days since the last time we talked, and so there's been a bunch of puzzles and things to talk about. How are you feeling about this year so far, Matt?
It's harder than past years.
Good, I feel that way too.
On the other hand, I have, at the current moment that we are talking, I have 2 stars on every single problem that exists,
Very nice. Congrats.
which I couldn't have said about an hour ago.
Now, without checking, would you say that at this time of the month in previous years, you would have said the same, that you had 2 stars all the way?
Maybe.
Okay.
But possibly not last year, because last year I was doing everything in a language I didn't know super well, and since I was using TypeScript. I know it a lot better this year, but I'm also using Python, which is kind of my bread and butter when it comes to programming. So that's making my life a little easier this year as well. The problems definitely seem more complex.
I agree that I think the first, even beyond the first 3 days that we talked about last time, yeah, there seemed to be like, and maybe this was just the memes on the subreddit that were informing me, but like it seemed like the odd days were harder and the even days were easier. It was almost like back and forth in terms of like complexity, but I don't think that pattern has necessarily held. But there definitely seems to be some up and down. It's not like they started easy and are gradually getting harder. They kind of, it's more of
Yeah,
a waveform, like a sine wave.
yeah. I will say I think that waveform is trending upwards, but it definitely is oscillating. For
Yes.
example, just yesterday was day 10. As we're recording this is day 11, December 11th. I don't
Yes.
know when it's going to go out. So day 10, parts of it really hard, parts of it like really, really hard. 11, I was done. Once I had a chance to actually sit down and do it, I was done in like 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so I
Partly
mean,
because and partly because a weird choice I made in part 1 just paid off in part 2.
I have a story. Well, I have a similar thing about day 9.
Yeah, I think
Day
I do
9
as well.
was
But let's start at 4.
Okay, let's start at 4. Let's just jump right into it. So, why don't you give us day 4? What did we
All
have to
right.
do on day 4?
Day 4 is called Scratch Cards. It's after we solved the gondola problem in day 3.
Like you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, what happens is completely irrelevant to the overall journey of 25 days, which is that you run into some like gardener or something, and that elf wants you to help them figure out if they won the lottery based on the scratch cards that they have,
Hmm.
effectively. So you get a series of rows, and each row has the card and the winning numbers. Not necessarily sorted. In fact,
Definitely
not
not
sorted.
sorted.
And then we just need to say, hey, how much is the pile of scratch cards worth? Based on, I believe it was like an exponential growth.
Well, that was part 2. Part 1, I don't think was so
Oh no, I'm still
exponential.
in part 1. Because yeah,
Oh, really?
if you have one matching number, it's worth 1 point. 2, it's worth 2 points. 3, it's worth 4
Oh,
points, and so
sure.
on.
The points.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your points grow exponentially, and then you add all that up and return it. So, I thought this one was pretty straightforward. For part 1, we'll get into part 2 in a sec, but part 1 anyway, I thought was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I
What
agree.
did you think?
Yeah, I think because the day before that, day 3, which was the gear ratios, which was like figuring out part numbers and whether they were next to a specific symbol or not. That one was definitely quite the parsing of text thing, and this one not nearly as much parsing. And the yeah, for the part one, the logic was pretty easy. This was a relief from compared to day three. This was going on the odd day was hard, even day was easy. So, but that was part one. Part two,
Yeah.
little
Well,
juicier.
how'd you go about solving part one? I'm curious. I did. So
Uh,
for myself, I initially captured way more information than I thought I would need, or than I needed, because I was planning for part two. I was like, aha, I'm gonna get ahead of the game for part two. And then
mhm.
I just used. I'm really doubling down on my regular expressions this year, and so I used a regex to split the lines up, and then I just used a couple of sets and intersected them for part one.
Oh, right. So this was the one where I finally had that OOP epiphany,
Yeah, you
where
know
I was
me.
like, yeah, like I know you're, that's how your brain works immediately, but my brain still works procedurally most of the time. But for some reason, this one finally triggered that, like, wait a second, instead of making a custom data structure on the fly out of multi-dimensional arrays, no, just make a card class with variables and methods. And I don't know why that doesn't occur to me all the time in these, but since day four, I think that's my takeaway. Day four is where I first had that real epiphany, and I definitely have used that in subsequent days. So,
Awesome.
yeah, I think that just making a class with methods and let me see, let me look at my solution one.
Yeah. Mine has exactly one method, which is winning numbers. It doesn't do very much, but having it in a class that could just do that, so I didn't have to like go over here and do this thing, go over there and do that. It just helps my brain focus on the actual problem. And
Yeah,
that came in handy several times in the last week since we last talked.
yeah. The basically my card object or class only has the for part one only has the one real method, which is just checking to see whether there's matches,
Yep.
and then just adding up the points based on that. So yeah,
Yeah. But then
part two.
part two through a literally wrote in my notes, this is a twist I did not plan for. After all of my like extra catching stuff in the first one, I didn't
Mhm.
plan it. So instead of winning points, I guess, and the points being money, instead, every time you win on a card, you receive a copy of. So if you have four matching numbers on a card, you win four copies of that of the. Hmm.
Of the
You
next
win one
four,
copy each of the next four.
yes.
I always it's hard to say that in the correct order,
Hmm.
which also tripped me up a little bit when I was reading it. So if I win card one has four things, then I will win an extra copy of card two, and an extra copy of card three, and an extra copy of card four, and an extra copy of card five, um,
Hmm.
which is actually the example they have there. This one, yeah, I did not plan for that. It didn't end up turning out to be super problematic for me, but it definitely threw me for a loop. The main issue I had here was keeping a separate count of how many cards to add as opposed to how
Hmm.
many there were of a given card. Like I had to
Hmm.
keep two numbers as I was going through. And then I think I had and then well, I will tell you how I solved the last part because I'm curious how you did, or how you the last bit that I have here. I want to see what you did first. But I will
Okay.
say, I love it when I run with the real input after debugging versus the sample input, and it passes on the first try. This is a very rare instance where that happened because it almost never happens in this thing. So I noted it because I was so happy that that happened. So, how did you go about solving part two of day four?
So I'm trying to remember, it was a few days ago, but I'm looking at my solution, and basically I added one more method to my card class, which was to add a copy. And now every card has a copies variable. So essentially I just started keeping track of how many copies I had. And so for example, if you go to card 1, you win 4 of them, then I essentially do a cuz I have a big I think I thought I had a essentially like a global variable with all the cards in it. Yes, I do. So I have a variable of cards with card objects instances in it. And then all I do is, like, let's say I won 4 on the first ticket, then I just did a loop that basically went to the next 4 cards and added copies to them. Now, I'm sure that because it's early in the month, because my solution worked. It took 3 minutes to run, and I think that it was definitely not the most efficient way. It was definitely a brute force way of counting the copies and keeping track of them and essentially just exponentially adding more and more again. And if the number of cards initially that they gave you was bigger, it wouldn't have worked. And definitely in subsequent days, the brute force method has come to bite me in the butt, which we will get to. So yeah, to put it bluntly, I basically just brute forced it, and 3 minutes a Ruby script ran and it gave me the solution. So tell me the correct way to do it.
Well, first I will tell you, I just ran problem 4 again just to see, and I spent
Okay.
more time fixing permissions issues uh, than
So
it took to run.
instantly then.
It was 0.03 seconds to run
Yeah,
sample and input for both part 1 and part 2. So the big difference between what you and I did, because more or less, well, you did a better job of being object oriented than I did. I should have actually put card copies in my class, and I didn't. I kept it externally, which is why I got tripped up on the thing I mentioned I got tripped up on. If I put it in the
interesting.
class,
Okay.
it would have been simpler. But the
Sure.
big thing, you went through and you added, like, every time you won, you would add 1 for each card, basically.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
added the number of copies of the
Mm.
card I had. And so I didn't have to iterate through it. I just
Yeah.
increased the number of copies. Right. And so if I'd stored that in the card, it would have been super I would have been done like right away. Because
Mhm.
I recognize that right as soon as I look at it, I'm like I'm not gonna be able to iterate through that. I'm actually happy that it finished in like 3 minutes. That's good. Because I've had a couple
Yeah.
things where I ran them and they never stopped. I let them run for a couple of days. Uh,
A couple of days.
well,
What?
I even got the actual answer and just still let my original version run. I think that was day 8. We'll talk about that.
We'll get there. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh
overall, I thought day 4 was pretty good. It was an interesting twist that like I said, I hadn't planned for it. I tried to
mhm.
guess the twists ahead of time. I did not. And I haven't in general most of the days. Not gotten anywhere near it.
All right. So I think I will take puzzle 5, mainly because this was the puzzle that I spent the most time reading of any puzzle that we've done, even up to like today's puzzle, which I haven't even started, but I at least read through it and I more or less grokked what it was trying to say. But so puzzle 5, if you give a seed a fertilizer, I didn't really have time. I didn't really have a lot of time to work on this, but even with that, my first note, just I wanted to note that one of the things I did this year that I talked about I was going to do is that I you started. I think you said that you have a GitHub repo for your
I do
solutions.
now.
Yeah, which is
I
good.
didn't until day 10.
Well, the best time was when you first started. The second best time was now. Um, I created a whole website. I created a whole Ruby on Rails 7 website where I basically like have a puzzle model and I have CRUD. And anytime a day comes up, I create a new puzzle. I add the description. I have a notes field. I have an input field so I can always look at the input for the day, and also I have a code button so that I can look at the
Put
code.
the URL in the chat. I
I
want to see
I,
this.
I am gonna do this now. This was both super fun and interesting because I haven't dealt with Ruby on Rails in a long time, and it has changed a lot since I last used it. I think the last time I used it was Rails 3, and it's now Rails
Mm.
7, and many things have changed. So I believe me, I've spent a not inconsiderable amount of time just figuring out how to get Rails to do stuff, and then pushing it to production, which is the link I just sent you, was even more configuration mumbo jumbo stuff that is not worth getting into. But ugh, it's definitely not FTP files to a server. It's a whole
What happens if I What happens if I click add new at the top there, Mike?
uh you're not supposed to have an add new on production. I forgot to take that out. Actually, you should get prompted for
Oh,
uh
yeah.
yeah.
Username and password. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not as bad.
Yeah.
As long as you did that.
I did
This is
do
actually
that.
really cool. I,
Yeah.
I like the way, like, it looks nice. It's easy to read. It's actually easier to read than the actual Advent of Code
Well, yeah,
day.
it's
Partly because it's just way stripped down to,
it's very much
like,
so, yeah.
here's what you need to know.
Yeah, and
Trebuchet? Trebuchet.
yeah, so it's been fun building that and putting the stuff in there because it's sort of like the Advent of Code website, but augmented with my stuff that I care about. So yeah, if you go to Trebuchet, you see my notes, and you can see the code. So you can literally see the Ruby file that I wrote that's just pulling from the server, and you can see the input of the day. One thing I'd love to do is
That I can't do. I can't look at the code. That requires permissions that I don't
oh,
have.
good. Yeah, I meant for that to happen. Uh,
Cool. Good job.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, what I want to do is actually add a button like on the code page that just says like run code, and so you can actually see it run the input and get the solution. Uh, but I just haven't got there. But over the days, I've just been adding more and more to it, and it's fun. Anyway, so day 5. Yeah, my first note is I spent almost an hour just reading the description of 5.1, and I'm still not sure what it's asking, let alone how to code it. That was on the day that it came out, and then I just had to leave it. And days came, and I did other days, and I finally went back to work on this for real, like yesterday or something, and got 5.1. So I was able to solve the description. Now, it's weird. Now that I know what it's asking, it doesn't seem quite as uh, difficult to parse, but for some reason, it was just rough to figure out what they were trying to tell me and how to translate that into code. How did you feel about oh, but sorry, I didn't even explain what it was. So the short end of this, if you give a seed of fertilizer, is you're given a bunch of seeds, which are just like 1 or 2 digit numbers, and then you're given a bunch of mappings, like seed to soil map, and you get 3 numbers. You get the destination range start, you get the source range start, and then you get a length. And so, for example, the first line is 50, 98, and 2. That means that there is a destination range of 50 to 51 because it's length 2, and a source range of 98 to 99, which is also length 2. And essentially, that means that if you take a seed number like 79 and you map it onto that range, it should tell you what the next number is. And then there's a bunch of maps that you follow along. This number maps to this number, maps to this number, maps to this number. Some of the numbers don't have mappings, and so those are just mapped to the same number. So there's like no conversion that needs to be done. And so figuring out the parsing, figuring out the logic, that was just a lot of this. And then I had that issue where all the samples worked fine, and then I ran the input and the numbers got big, and it sat there and waiting for the heat death of the universe. And
Pretty much.
so I had to rethink how to do that, and I found a clue about how to and it's a similar thing with day 4, which was a lot of Advent of Code is figuring out what do you actually really need to keep track of. And the naive solution that I always go to, because that's just how I am about these things, is keeping track of as much stuff as I possibly can so that I can see how everything is working every step of the way. The problem is the inputs are usually too big or too numerous, and your computer just can't handle that. I don't have a supercomputer, and so it chokes on that. And so then you have to think about, wait, what do I actually need to keep track of? Which is the boundaries of these ranges, not everything in between. And I think that
Yeah.
that came up before. It'll come up again.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that's my
I
experience
felt
with this.
similarly.
Okay.
My first note that I wrote down was annoyingly complicated. That was before I started working on the problem. I read the thing and I was like, "What?" There were so many things in day 5 that I felt like were intentionally done to make it more difficult.
Hmm.
Not like just even things as simple as the mapping was backwards from the
Yeah.
way I would have done it. It's like go
Why?
from to to. No, it went to from.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So I and this was the first major optimization problem of the year. I think I did the same thing you did the first time,
Mhm.
or in part one, and as soon as I saw it hanging, I was like, oh yeah, that's a is at least n squared. I think it may have been exponential like altogether, but I think it was in it, it was a lot. But because you had to go through the entire range, and then I did what you just described, which was looking at the edge cases. I did. I actually made a class to hold the mappings for
Mhm.
this one. So I have an interval class. I don't think I created that until part two. And I made a mapping class. And the mapping class, I just did some I just did some clever things in there, and it ended up making my life a lot easier.
You clever man.
But I also wrote a lot of like helper functions along the way. Uh, this was definitely a messy one as
Mm.
I tried to figure out what to do. But ultimately, yeah, it was see if the end of this one is inside of the beginning of that. Like where do they overlap? Oh, that's what it was. I made an interval class and I figured out where my intervals would overlap
Mm.
so that I could split them. But I don't think I did that again until part two, because part two, if you want to describe that.
Yeah, so just so you know, I did not finish part two because it took me so long to do
Hmm.
part one. But part two is essentially instead of getting a list of like four seeds, like one, two, three, four, actually what those numbers refer to are a range of seed numbers. So now you have to. So, for example, the first range starts with seed number 79 and contains 14 values. So you have a seed and a length. And then the next one is another seed and a length. And so essentially it's just there's even more stuff to compute. And so my initial naive thing would have choked even harder, I'm sure, on 5.2. But so without spoiling the actual solution, just because I mean, at some point I may want to try it. Like, what was the major pain point you had to get across or pass for this one?
Yeah. I think actually this is where I ended up creating the intervals and mapping classes in part one. Now that I've gone back and looked at the history in my notes, because again, very messy solution on my side.
Mm-hmm.
I initially solved part one by storing my map as tuples of
Mm.
the minimum source to the maximum source to a delta of the destination, or between the destination and the source, so that the mapping was really fast. I didn't have to like run across things. I just grab my thing, add whatever the delta set. So it's like, which source do I fall in? Add. This one, again, the first thing I wrote was, that's obnoxious. When I read that's a tomorrow problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one took me the second longest of all of the problems that we've done so far, 10 being the longest. This one took me almost 24 hours after I first saw the first part.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed to get it in under the wire before day 6 dropped. And this is where I ended up. I wrote OOP saves my brain again. I ended up building a class for the intervals and a class for the mappings, and that was where I did that interval overlap stuff that I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. I won't go into more detail because spoilers. And I just ran it, and again, 0.03 seconds for that one. So
Very
the
impressive.
solutions, if you do it this way, really like it's insane how big the difference is between unoptimized and
Mm-hmm.
optimized for these problems.
Yeah.
And these ones were all still what I would consider fair optimizations. It gets into some ones where I'm like, how would you know to do that in some of the later days?
Yeah. All right. Well, should we head over number 6,
Number 6, I'm going to use your
or should
website
we
to
wait
look
for
at this
it?
one.
Because that's what it's called. Haha.
Yeah. Part 6 coming up. All right. So, puzzle 6 is called Wait for It, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, you are trying to you're having a boat race with
Obviously.
like model boats,
Hmm.
and there's a button you can press, and the longer you hold that button down, the further the boat will go when you let go.
Hmm.
And I believe it's there. Like the longer you hold it down, I think it increases. Excuse me. The longer you hold it down, it increases. I think exponentially, more or less. Whereas, so the, if I hold it down for 1 millisecond, I would go 1 millimeter. If I hold it down for two, then I go 2 millimeters per millisecond.
Hmm.
4 milliseconds. So, but there's a balance, right, to be struck between the amount of time that you have to run the race and how long you can hold it down. Because if you hold it down for too long, the race is over before you even let go.
Right.
Even though it might go like 12 millimeters in a millisecond. Um, why not just use meters per second, guy? Come on. Um, and ultimately, we had to figure out, and in addition to the race that just find the time that you had, it also gave you the distance that the best distance that anyone had gotten so
Right. The
far, the
record.
distance to beat.
Yeah.
Right. So, I did not write code for this one.
Really?
At
Because you
first,
realized it was a math problem, didn't you?
yeah, I just decided to math this one. As I was trying to figure out how to do it, I was dissecting the quadratic equation, and I'm like, "Ah, okay, if I use it this way, and what if that, and this other thing, and I need x-intercepts, and so I did the math. What I also did though is I misread one of the samples, uh, and
Ooh.
I spent like 12 hours, not 12 hours,
Oh
because I slept for a lot of
gosh,
that.
no.
I spent several hours that night trying to get it done.
Hmm.
Gave up, went to bed, woke up the next day, and went, that's got to be wrong. And I went back and looked at the example, and oh, yep, it was wrong. Uh, my memory was wrong. I plugged it in, and then it was the right number. Yeah, originally, so it was for a sample was you have 30 seconds, and the best was 200. And I wrote that and for some reason I had read the answer as hold it for 11 uh, milliseconds and not 9 milliseconds, but 11 was the minimum number, not the result, or something like that.
Hmm.
It was, and I was just like, I'm so, I was so confused. But once I got that working, just plugged into the equation I wrote on my whiteboard and it worked. I didn't even bother writing a parser, just plugged in the numbers directly.
And that works for both parts. So you're
Yeah,
done. Yeah, well that is the good, correct, efficient way to do it. Yes. Now
how'd
for
you do it?
for yeah, for everyone else who did not notice that, like me, part 1 could still be done by, I guess, yet again brute forcing, just trying every race and increasing it by 1, and then taking the total of the ones that win. um the next best thing to do, that I found, was to just find the minimum speed that won and the maximum speed that won, and then find the difference in
Hmm.
between them. And eventually, this is another one where I was able to get 6-1 pretty, because the numbers were small. Um, because in 6-1 the numbers they give you are small, and then in 6-2 they're like, oh wait, those aren't supposed to be spaces in between those numbers. Actually, these numbers are much huger, and now your terrible solution is not going to work on these numbers. So instead, optimize. And so yeah, I don't remember my high school math or the quadratic formula, and did not really grok that that's really what was trying to be solved. But once I did, and I found an implementation of how to do that in Ruby, um, then yes, I was able to find the answer. Although I think, was this one still took a while? Oh no, this was not one that took a long time to do. Once I figured out uh, the quadratic formula to do this, then yeah, it was easy. I did try my brute force on 6-2 and ran it for about 5 hours and then gave up. Uh, and the thing is, I didn't even put any kind of progress in there, so I literally had no idea how far it had even made it. It was one of those things where, like, how long do I need to wait for it to do something? Will it ever do something? But I figure, like you said, if you give it, I can't believe you gave them multiple days. Like 5 hours was enough for
Oh,
me.
that was just one I ran in the. At that point, I was just I want to see how it's doing. I had it open in a separate terminal window. I was like, let's just see. And I do print out. I print out dots as it goes, and I think I
Right.
did it every like million or something on the
Yeah.
one that I was doing, and it was like trillions of calculations or something.
You know.
This one part two, the answer I ended up with,
Mhm,
which again ran relatively quickly, was like I think it was in the 200 millions range or something. So
mhm,
not like absurd to finish. Oh, it was only, no, it was only 27 million. So
mhm,
like that will finish after a while.
mhm.
Um, but even then, there was so many
Yeah,
things.
I'm also just kind of curious and wondering, because I chose to do it in Ruby, if if I were doing this in, I don't know, like C, would it just magically be better because it's more optimized for this kind of thing, and Ruby is not really meant to run this kind of stuff? I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
C is a little bit faster, but ultimately these boil down to the order of not order of
The
operations, order of magnitude of the
Yeah,
problem,
the
right?
the
So the
O
big
end.
O.
Yeah, yeah, big O, right.
Yeah.
So this one I struggled with on part two just because it took me a long time to really figure out what the easy optimization was. But yeah, I still really enjoyed figuring out, even the ones that I struggle on. I still enjoy working on it, and I like the theme of this. I like the idea of the boat racing. I don't know. That was just even though this year really seems to be a lot of non sequitur things. Like, yeah, you're traveling
Yeah. It's
between
like on
island
your
and
way
island.
there, you noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, on your way to the next island, let's play some cards because that's
Yeah.
puzzle 7. It's called
This was possibly my favorite one, not necessarily from a how to solve it, but I just the first thing I build whenever I learn a new language is a deck of cards
you mentioned
class. Like
that.
it's the
Yeah.
first thing I do.
Yeah. No,
It
this one was very cool. Just in terms of the theme. Yeah, I liked it. So basically, you get to go on an airship, and they drop you off on a vast desert and descend. Oh wait, no, it drops you off the edge of a vast desert and descends back to Island, and you need to take a camel somewhere. I think across a long desert, and they're like, "Hey, while we're doing this, let's play some cards." And so essentially, this puzzle is they give you a list of 5 card like poker hands, and and each one of them has a number value associated with it, and essentially you need to figure out using I mean, I think this is standard poker rules. Rank the hands, and then multiply them by their rank and their number value. So
yeah. The only caveat where it's not normal poker hands is you can have 5 of a kind.
mm, that's true.
And
Yeah.
the way they solve for ties is strange, right? Like if you both have 2 pair, it's not the higher pair that wins, it's the first pair in the list.
Right. Well, I think they probably did that just to make it a little easier.
So you could, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that was to make it so that you couldn't use like a poker scoring
Oh,
library because I'll bet there's a lot out there.
that's a good point. Yeah. So essentially, yeah, you rank them, and if you have ties, then you just go by the first card, and if that's a tie, go to the next card, go to the next card. So yeah, this one I didn't have too much trouble. I think the most interesting thing about it that I did that I don't really do very often is because I'm using Ruby and everything's an object, I just monkey patched the string class because um, I needed to give numerical values to the face cards so they were easier to
Mhm.
rank. And so the T, which was a 10, became a 10, the Jack became an 11, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just wanted that to be a simple, because everything's a string here, I just wanted that to be a simple conversion. So I just added a method to the string class to change those characters into numbers. And then the other thing that was cool that I did that I don't do a lot is making a custom sort comparator.
Mhm.
So that I could easily, compare hands and put them in the correct order. So yeah, 7-1, which was just that, was not that tough and was fun to do. I haven't spent a lot of time on 7-2, which changes things because now Jays are no longer jacks, they are jokers. And so if you have a joker in your hand, it magically becomes the strongest combination of cards it could be to make that the most powerful hand. I started trying to figure this out, but I honestly just don't. I don't really know what my approach would be to make this besides just going through every hand and if there's a joker, making exceptions for the joker. But I'm not. But I'm after doing Advent of Code for several years, I just know that can't be the right way. There's got to be an optimal way. So, how did you think about solving it?
All right, so part one was easier than I anticipated after reading. I looked at it, I was like, oh, poker hands. I think I was out to dinner and when 9 o'clock Pacific time,
Hmm.
midnight Eastern happened, and I read this and I went, oh, I don't want to do that. Just even though I like cards and I was just like, it's gonna be such a pain to do all this. But then I sat down and did it. I was like, oh, that turned out to be pretty easy.
Hmm.
Past couple of days, OOP had saved me, so I immediately started with a class. I think I've done that ever
Yeah,
since.
same
I
here.
had a class
Yep.
represents a hand of camel cards with methods to score the hand and compare the hand versus another hand,
Yep.
which was the comparator
You you
comparator.
should be so proud of me, Matt, that I did the same thing. And normally I would not do that
I
kind of thing,
am.
but I'm learning.
Um, Part two, I had a similar reaction to as you just stated,
Hmm.
of thinking it was going to be really hard. It actually turned out to be easier than I thought,
Okay,
significantly easier.
so I need a hint
I
then.
did not. So I did not monkey patch anything in Python.
Okay.
I had a map that just mapped
Hmm.
the letter
Yeah,
to a numeric value.
The monkey
Um,
patching was just a helper. It was not necessary. I just
yeah.
felt like doing it. So
So I changed that mapping
okay.
so that jokers were low
Hmm.
instead of jacks.
Yeah.
Um, and then I added a flag into my class and to my solution to say, am I using jokers or not? So that I
Same.
could
Yeah.
make my life easy. And then I sat down to figure out, like, well, okay, what might and I went to my whiteboard and I just started I wrote things out. I was like, okay, let's say I've got one joker. What if I have two jokers? What if I have three jokers? What if I have there's only five options there.
Hmm.
And then I compared it to like what my other hands would be, which there's only I think 8 types of hands,
Hmm.
and there is it's a surprisingly small number of
Okay.
cases to deal with. And so once I saw that, it was really easy to code up the rest. But I thought it was gonna just like I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a big old optimization issue. Turned out to not be too hard.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better because now I have inspiration to actually go in there because that's what I started to do, and I was like, is this really the right way? But if that's how you solved it, then that's probably what I'll just end up doing. So cool.
And now on to day 8, which was the first one that I got really like angry working on this one. At myself mostly.
So that's okay. That's interesting because I have a note that said 8-1 took the least amount of time to do since maybe 1-1. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but I didn't even try A2, so that's probably what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, it's 8 2.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
so we're still on a camel
Still going through the desert.
for some reason.
Eh.
But we have a map, and this map has like a list of nodes and edges, basically. So like node AAA goes to BBB and CCC,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to find the shortest path to ZZZ by following the directions on the map. So it starts off with a list of directions like right, left, right, or whatever, and then the mappings that I just described, and then you just follow the mappings from A to Z. And it was a straightforward traversal to get the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to do visualizations on this one, but I didn't have time, and I hadn't finished looking into how to do visualizations at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but part 2.
Oh, also, just a
Uh,
quick note before you get into A2. I did finally use a regex on this one.
Yay!
Yeah, and
Did I?
it
What did I do
it
on
was
this
a
one?
good idea. I probably should have been using that before, but it was
Oh, this is
helpful.
such ugly code. I made for this one some classes. I made a network node and a network map
Mm.
class. During my parsing, I just uh, pulled out the directions and then I actually passed the rest of the input into network map directly and let it do the rest of the parsing, which ultimately was the network node. So normally I would go through and like break up how I was doing it, but instead I made a specific like it's not a constructor, but you can call it and it gives you and it generates the thing. There's a term for it, which I'm blanking on. Um,
I mean,
Most commonly used in the design pattern of singleton,
mm-hmm.
where you it's like a factory basically. So
Mm,
it's a really really small factory.
mm-hmm.
So I gave it the line, it did the splitting, it did the parsing. I actually really liked that approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then my network itself was mostly it didn't do a lot. It did a lot more in part two, but in the first part, it was basically just a way of holding the information.
Yeah.
How did you have any trouble with part one? You said no
No,
for that
part
one.
one was easy, and I think so part two is mainly just now you have multiple nodes that you're keeping track of.
You have multiple A nodes and multiple Z nodes, and you
Right.
need to get to all of the A nodes to at least to one of the Z nodes, not the same Z node,
Right.
but each of them needs to be on a Z
And on a
node
Z node.
at the same step in the operation.
Right.
And this broke my brain. I had no, I had to go get hints for this, several hints to
Okay.
get this one to work.
Okay.
Um, Even though I'm a math guy, the whole least common multiplier or whatever thing does not enter. It's not a thing that I think about
Yeah.
as a way of getting around problems like this because it doesn't seem like it should work, but it did. So I stole a least common multiplier solver
Such a rookie
off the
move.
internet because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to remember how to do that. It
Yeah.
turns out you use lowest common denominators and like invert them. Lowest common denominator is built into Python, so thanks Python. Um, the This was the one where I let that brute force method just run, and it ran for days and didn't ever get an answer. Um, and uh, let's see how long this takes if I run my Python program right now. Yeah, it finished in 0.19 seconds.
That's a lot better than days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I got was essentially naively running my logic from one just multiple times, and yeah, it just kept going forever. And I'm like, no, this can't be it, and I just kind of gave up. So, uh, I'm not sure that I really want to come back to do part two of this. I don't know. You know, the I mean, the thing with Advent of Code, at least with me, is that like if I fall behind, it's really hard to get the the chutzpah to go back to
Oh, for
days
sure.
before. So it's sort of like, should I even, or should I just kind of let it go? But then also a lot of I mean, it's not like one builds on the next, but there's definitely like things you learn along the way that help inform the later days. And so I feel like I'm missing out some crucial stuff by not solving them. Um, and then it starts to feel like a Steam backlog. I just have like all these games, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, I'm gonna go back and finish that. No, I'm never gonna go back and finish that. Um, and it's more fun to keep up with everybody else doing it than to constantly go back to old stuff that everybody solved. So, I don't know. This one did not grab me like the boat race or even the cards did. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I have a really hard time once the 24-hour window has expired
Hmm.
in finishing a problem.
Yeah.
I did finish 10 after the 24 hours, but mostly because I had had a chance to figure out how you might do it
Hmm.
by then, and I hadn't even started on day 11. But we'll get to that in a moment.
Yes.
Um,
So should we go to number 9 then? Day 9.
Number 9. Yep.
Number 9.
I liked this one again.
Oh right.
This was one where I don't know how it got there. We have a hang glider, and somehow from the hang glider, we got to inferring numbers in a sequence.
Yeah, you pull out your handy. So this one's called Mirage Maintenance, and as you're riding your camel through the desert and going through the ghost maps, you admire the oasis hidden here, and you pull out your handy oasis and sand instability sensor, which is a nice backronym of oasis, and analyze your surroundings. And so essentially, the input for this puzzle is you get a report of values and how they change over time. So each line is like a history of a value. So for example, the first line is 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And so you can notice that each time the value changes, it's changing by 3. Not all the lines change by the same amount. And so your job is basically to, I mean, it's sort of like you're taking a derivative of the delta, and so like the next line of that one would be a line of threes because they're all threes. And then the differences between all those numbers are zeros because there's no difference. And that's how you know you're done with that particular history value. And then you have to backfill um, the values in each previous line by adding the number, um, the change that you have found in that line to an additional value at the end. And so like the 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, the next value in the history would be 18 because you're going up by 3. Now obviously the real inputs get harder and they're not consistent. And so this one for me, let's see, the first note I put was like, recursion is probably needed here. And I did use recursion. I don't think I made a class. No, I didn't make a class. I basically just ran each line through a method that got all the differences between each of them and added them to kind of like a tally of differences that I could reference. Um, and then I just went back and backfilled the information once I knew what the differences were. So yeah, I mean the logic itself was not crazy. It just
I
took
mean, they gave it to us.
right, right. Well, sorry, the data structuring of that logic took me a while, but in general I was able to get it. So before we go to 9.2, is that roughly how you did it, or did you have some fancy way?
I did make a class
Okay.
called Oasis Sequence,
That's a big class name.
which I just thought was a cool name.
Mhm.
Uh, and it had one method besides the like built-ins, which was infer next,
Mm.
that just did the job, and it would actually build a new Oasis sequence out of the deltas,
Mm.
and then run infer next on that, and then work backwards.
Nice.
It was honestly one of the easier ones we've had from like my perspective.
I agree.
Mostly because they gave us the algorithm.
Yes.
Had they not given us that algorithm, this would have been a really hard problem because I didn't know you could do that with like delta. Yeah, just keep doing the deltas until you get to zeros and then add back up.
Yeah.
Would never have occurred to me.
Yeah. Right. And so yeah, 9.1 I think was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Even for me, which is saying a lot. So part 2. So part 2, I read this. Let's see. My note was, I always feel dread submitting an answer because I never feel confident. I feel even more dread reading part 2 of a puzzle because I'm expecting some crazy twist that I'm not going to be able to solve. But this is the only one thus far. I literally added a single method to, like in the middle of another method, which was just reversing the numbers, and the same logic worked. And I was like, no way. Like I was wearing my headphones, and when I submitted it and it was right, I literally tore off my headphones and threw them down because I couldn't believe that it worked. Because that never happens for me.
I had a similar reaction, only I wasn't wearing headphones. But I was shocked. I'm like,
Me too.
Well, I have to infer the previous. Well, I know how to infer the next, and it's the same logic. What if I reverse the string? What'll happen? And it just worked.
It just worked. It never
And
just
I was like,
works.
that can't be.
Yeah.
It never just works.
Yeah, did we? I don't.
It was.
I feel like I cheated, like I shortcutted somehow. Like there's no way it was that easy. But maybe a lot of the time, at least I hear from you and our friends who are on the leaderboard when you're doing these, is that part two can be a lot easier if you put in the time on part one properly. But also, this one, just the twist was not. I wonder how many people saw that twist and spent a bunch of time like re-architecturing everything to like do it differently when all you had to do was reverse it. I don't know, or maybe everybody figured it out. I don't know. I didn't look up this one.
I want to know if there was a different way to do part one that would have made part two hard.
Yeah,
Because I can't come up with one.
I don't know. I'm sure someone did, but yeah, this one was one of the most like wow. I I'm very happy with that one because it just kind of went.
Yeah.
So yay.
Yeah. Today's day 11 has a similar, like, if you did part one right, part two is not trivial, but it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do that.
I like
If
that.
you didn't, it's like, oh, I'm never gonna get this done. Like, this would never, ever, 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 ever finish.
Okay.
But I happened to do part one right day 11. I was like, cool.
Okay.
We'll talk about that next podcast.
Yeah, but finally,
First, we should talk about
let's wrap.
my least favorite problem of all time.
Okay, so yeah, let's wrap it up with puzzle 10. You can go over it, but I just wanted to say that despite it being difficult, this was one of the most interesting thematic visual kind of problems. Like it wasn't just, it was one of the first ones where it wasn't just a bunch of numbers that you were parsing. Now you're actually parsing like, well, you go ahead and tell.
Yeah. So what we're given here is a grid, and in that grid there are a bunch of pipes, and also blank spaces, because otherwise Taylor Swift would be angry.
Wah,
So-
wah, wah. Yep.
You're welcome. So some of those pipes, if you start, it tells you which one to start at. Like there's an S to indicate that pipe, and some of the pipes are in a loop starting from that S. And all we had to do was go through and find the loop, and I think it was like print out the length of the loop or something. Oh no, and then it was
The furthest from
how
the
far
start.
away. What's the furthest away point?
Yeah.
Which was just math. For that part, so I didn't mind it. Finding the loop was pretty straightforward, but optimizations got in the way, and I did have to break my recursive solution and make it iterative.
Oh.
But this one was not bad. Part one was not bad. It's part two I hated.
So once again,
But-
let me just say that I did not get part one, so I don't know what part two is. But I'm okay with you telling me what it is, but obviously, not the solution.
I won't talk about the solution.
Yeah.
I will talk about some of the problems I ran into with the solution.
Okay.
But still on part one, the first thing I did when I saw this, I actually got really excited to do visualizations. I've been really wanting to do some amount of visualization as we've gone through this, and I just haven't had I wanted to get fancy and do it in like Pygame or TK Enter, or like do an actual GUI. And with this one, it was very straightforward to see how I would, after solving it, print something out in a color-coded way. So I just did basically color highlighting. But I didn't just do that. I also I spent several hours the night this came out not working on the problem, but I cleaned up my code base. I added in some basic utilities like for the color highlighting. I cleaned up my template. I made it so that between if you have a list of like sample and input or other input types you want to do, it pauses in between and like you have to hit enter and then it goes on, so I could like scroll back and see. I put it into Git. It's up on my GitHub if anyone wants to look at my problems. I ended up really liking that. It was part two I hated.
Okay. Well, so what is part two then? Because I'm trying. Well, actually, hold on. I'm trying to imagine. Let me see if I give me a few seconds to see if I can guess what the twist is, because I'm assuming it's a significant twist in terms of logic. So just to reiterate, the part one is you essentially have to map this main pipe, which also has a bunch of like distractor pipes. There's many other pipes in this sewer, or I don't know. Oh, it says you're on a field that has that's densely packed with pipes. You're like looking down and there's pipe. Yeah. So there's a bunch of pipes that have nothing to do with the main pipe, and you need to ignore them, and you need to find where you start and the furthest away in the main pipe. So how could one make this harder besides just making it a bigger space, because that's already what the input does, because the samples are like super small, and then the actual input is like, I don't know, 100 by 200, characters or something. Do they add another, like, what is it, rat or animal or something that's crawling around there that's like chasing the other one?
Nope.
Or wait a second. Is it Did they make it three-dimensional? Are there layers?
No.
Oh.
That would have really been bad for me because I can't see things in my head, and as soon as you get 3-dimensional, I can't draw it anymore.
Okay, all right.
That would
All
have
right,
really
I give
sucked.
up. So what's the twist?
You weren't super far off with the other animal, but what it is oh, the animal's not actually in the pipe. This animal that we chased into this loop of a pipe, it's not in there. Oh, what if the pipe like circles around itself and it's not in the pipe loop, but the pipe loop contains its nest, like it encloses it,
Okay.
which in and of itself not too hard to figure out.
Mhm.
But we're not just finding those. We also It has to be ones that are enclosed within the area, but not. Uh, but if you have the so if the loop goes around and it's part of the same uh loop, I guess, uh, and there's no way to reach that from the
Uh-huh.
outside, no matter what. But sometimes you could have it like fold back in on itself, and so the backs of the loop touch. Um, and those ones do still count as being outside. So it's enclosed fully, but there's like a gap, an invisible gap between pipe segments. And this is the first one I
Huh.
didn't get done in 24 hours.
Mhm.
I got an almost working solution on my own before I started asking anyone or looking online or checking any of the threads or anything. It worked for everything except for that edge case I mentioned,
Mhm.
the outside ones, and I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to do that. Um, I came up with a couple of ways, and one of them is what our friend Richard did.
Mhm.
But my code was not written in a way that would make that easily doable,
Mhm.
and I dug in my heels, and I'm like, I will find another way to do this. I refuse to do this. I refuse to rip apart all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
I don't care if I just don't get the answer right. And I spent forever doing it, and then a couple hints gave me some ways, and actually day 11
Oh,
ultimately is what made me like looking at that and some of the things it does. I was like, oh, I could use that concept here, and it worked.
interesting. Now, it's interesting that you dug your heels in, because I could have swore you gave me that your philosophy is a lot more in, like, it's okay to throw away your prototype. Throw away your
Oh yeah.
prototype, but you did not want to throw away your prototype.
No, I was mad about it.
Oh, okay.
I very much fell victim to the sunk cost fallacy on this one.
Yeah.
I spent so much time on this, like my weekend basically.
Yeah.
I spent I spent all day Sunday working on this. That I was like, no, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna get this before 9 o'clock. And then 9 o'clock happened, and I looked at day 11, and I went, eh. And I closed my laptop, and I didn't think about it until after work today. But then I got them both done.
So,
So,
so would you say that this is the first real difficulty spike, day 10 of this year?
um, I think I think day 5 was the big difficulty spike, the one that required
The
um
optimization.
optimization, and then the next biggest was wherever we ended up with that least common multiplier crap.
And day
Um,
8, the ghost maps.
oh yeah, day 8.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was like 5, 8, and then 10.
Yeah.
So there doesn't seem to be a pattern.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to plug this into the inferring program and figure out if there's a pattern to when it gets bad.
Oh man, I would not put it past Eric Wastel to build some kind of meta puzzle into the whole thing. I never thought about it until just now, but I'm like, there's no way that he hasn't at least thought about doing something like that. That would be
No,
insane.
well, now I'm going to do that.
Oh man, yeah.
What day was that one?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, now that we're on day 11, and there's like 14 more days of puzzle, or is it only 13? I forget. There's not actually one on. Is there one on Christmas?
No, there is. There's two on Christmas.
Right.
One of them is like a really trivial thing usually, and the other one is get 2 stars in everything else,
Right. Right.
which I have never done. I have not gotten all of the stars ever because after a while I just don't care enough and I don't go back and do them.
Yeah. I wonder. I wonder. I mean, I know it makes sense that it's done in December because it's the advent of code, and this is when all the advent calendars happen. But and ostensibly, people have more free time over the holidays to work on stuff like this. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have plenty of life going on that gets in the way of this, and because I
Yeah.
can't solve them super fast, it just means that I just fall behind, and that just always happens, and it's hard to accept because I want to also just be done and have all the stars and be able to talk about it all, but I just know I can't. I just can't. So
So what did we decide? We decided day 5, 8, and 10
yeah,
are the bad
yeah,
ones. Okay.
that's a 3 and a 2,
I'm putting it
and then
in.
that's a
Putting it
1.
in sample. So let's see. I need to actually print these out when I'm done. Let's see what happens if I run this. The next problem is going to be in a trillion years.
I mean, that seems possible.
I'm guessing that means I didn't put the answer in correctly. That's
No, no,
that's
no.
my
That
guess.
seems perfectly legitimate. Yeah. Okay, so
Oops.
just to wrap this up, because we have gone over the hour mark, but we did talk about 6 problems, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 problems in the advent of code 2023. And we did not, even though it is day 11, we did not talk about day 11 because I didn't even get a chance to look at it. So we'll talk about that another time. That's the first 10 days of the advent of code. There are several weeks left, and due to scheduling and vacations and such, we may not be able to check in again on this on the podcast. So I was just curious, Matt, to get your thoughts on how you're feeling so far and how you feel about the rest of Advent of Code 2023 compared to other years.
I'm pretty happy with where I am right now
Hmm.
because I currently have 22 stars out of 22 possible stars.
Nice job.
Ranking wise, I'm second place in our little server group, and I'm pretty much middle of the pack in my work group, which doesn't make me feel bad given it's a lot of smart people
Hmm.
over there. So great. And some of them apparently just work on these immediately when they come out, and I work on them when I am able to.
Hmm.
So not too bad. Um, I'm nervous about the rest, but I am allowing myself to look for hints this year instead of in the past. I'm like nothing. I'm not going to look at anything. So hopefully I'll get something done. Um, we'll see. I'd love to actually get Christmas Eves because I don't think I've done it once, and that's my birthday. Like I think every year I try it, and then I'm like, it's my birthday. I'm not getting mad on my birthday, and I close my laptop.
Yeah, no, that would be good. I mean, my goal for this year was I was hoping to at least get the first part of every problem, or at least more than I did in the previous years. So I'm looking at the last 2 years that I've done this all the way through, 2022 and 2021. And in 2022, I made it to about day 11 where I got the first part of each of them, and then it drops, and I got 1 star on day 18. I don't know how that happened, but I didn't get any stars in any of the others, and I don't know if that's because I just never got to them or they were too hard for me. Probably a mix.
They were
Yeah,
hard.
probably a mix of both. The year before that, in 2021, was pretty similar. I got the first star until day 10, and then there was a drop off, and then there's like some stars here and there. Um, so this year is, pretty similar. Although, if the previous years are any indication, I am very close to the point where I'm just not going to be solving these in time to get a star. And so that's really all I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping, like, I do hope, because I've got at least 1 star all the way through 9. I would like to get at least the first star in 10. And if 11 is as easy as you say, it'd be nice to get both of those. And that would already be better than I did last year. And so that's my current goal.
So I went and looked. Last year, I got 2 stars. I don't know when I finished them all because some of them probably happened after. But I got 2 stars all the way through day 20.
Nice.
Then I got 1 star on 21, 22, 23, and 25, and nothing on 24. My birthday, the only day that has nothing. And I've never gone back to look because I just don't want to. Oh, no, sorry, that was 2 years ago. That
Okay.
was in 2021. Last year, I got 2 stars all the way up to 15, nothing on 16, one on 17 and 18, nothing on 19, two on 20 and 21, one on 22, two on 23, nothing on 24, and one on 25. So I think you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to get one on 25 because I think it just starts easy.
Hmm.
Oh, maybe not. No,
I
actually,
don't
last
think
year's
so.
25 was kind of complicated.
Yeah. The full of hot air balloons one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think I looked at that one because
I think I'm misremembering then.
that. Yeah, that's the thing with like you said, as this progresses, unless you're just able to like knock these out like right away, uh, the I don't know, there's just kind of a mental burden that just kind of grows and grows, and I just kind of lose interest in it after a while because they don't get easier. They generally get harder, and so if I can't hack the second week, I'm not going to be able to hack the third or the fourth week, and so you just have to be aware of that. That's just how these kinds of things go. I still think it's fun to do as long as I do it. I try to do a little bit better each year. That's kind of my goal, and thus far, I'm on track to do that. So we'll see.
I will say I think it's worth looking at every day because
Hmm.
it does change in difficulty seemingly
Yeah.
with the day. Um,
Hmm.
but there will definitely be ones that we can't do. I I'm not going to hold my breath that won't be the case.
Yeah, there's always some just probably legendarily hard ones that go down in the lore as being like, hey, do you remember that year when they did that thing? That was I don't know what that is for Advent of Code, but I'm sure there is one. I'm just opening up all of them. I did try my hand at like 2019. I did like the first one just to see what it was like. I think we both did
I
actually.
think I did too. Yeah, I got 2 stars on problem one and never looked at anything else.
Yeah, I did a few. I did like the first 6 days or so just to see how I could do. Probably just to make myself feel better after not doing the last bits of a more recent one. But I don't know. It's fun. I still look forward to it, even though it's a struggle for me because it's not the kind of coding that I normally do. I'm rewarding myself by building a website chronicling my journey because that's my bread and butter, and I really like working on that, even though Ruby on Rails is a bit of a fuss bucket every now and then. But it's like, okay, I work on the problem for a little bit, now we work on the website for a little bit, now I work on the problem, look on the website, work on the website. So that's how I make it okay. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Advent of Code. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Hacking the Grepson. Yes, that's who we are. About the day 4 through 10 of Advent of Code. You can find other episodes where we talk about previous years of Advent of Code and other programmer developy stuff on hackingthegrepson.com. And until the next time we talk, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.